Yeah.
Okay, we are live.
Oh,
Here
no!
we go.
We're live, brother!
That is right, guys. You have tuned into your favourite podcaster's favourite podcast. It is Omega Luke, and I am here joined with my good friend all the way across the pond. Technology is pretty amazing. Here he is. It's Wilfred from Wilfred Watches. How you doing, buddy?
I'm trying to do the Jay White Too Sweet Me thing, because that's pretty amazing.
Yes.
How we were talking about Bullet Club all this year and how they were dying and they need to end, and turns out that Bullet Club is super, super cool again. So pretty exciting, man. I'm doing well. Very thankful for letting me on, man.
Hey, my pleasure. I've been on yours a couple of times. We did an awesome off-the-cuff video, chat, on your YouTube the other day when we had breaking news of Volta. Had a lot of great feedback from that, so that was pretty awesome. And I'm just basically repaying the favour getting you on, because we've been trying to get you on for a while, to be fair, but hard with time differences, I suppose.
Yeah, about that. I thought we were streaming a little bit later, but I got my times all backwards. So, but yeah, lots of crazy cool things happening in professional wrestling right now. 2019 seems like it's going to be a breakout year where wrestling is going to be knocking on the door of pop culture again. Popular culture, and if it's not already, I think it's going to burst through the door next year. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to talk positive today.
Yes, we are going to be very positive. Wrestling Rocks is what I've named this thing, because I was sat down the other day and I thought to myself, we got so many good things happening all across wrestling right now. I'm the first one to be negative when WWE do a pay-per-view that I don't like, or a booking that I don't like. I'm the first one to tweet about it and get annoyed by it. However, there are so many things right now that are amazing in the world of wrestling, and we've been speaking about it off air and just DMing each other, talking about amazing things. And we've had, since we agreed to do this Wrestling Rocks with a lot of positivity, talk about all things positive, there's been like 2 or 3 more things which have been announced, which we've had to add to the list that we can talk about today. So I'm really excited to have you on. It's definitely something I've been trying to get you on for a while. I think eventually you are going to be fantasy booking, which is going to be great once the league...
Bring it.
Once the league has ended, which is not going to be very long now. It's only going to be a couple more weeks and the league comes to an end. So it'll be great to get you involved in that lovely little title that you can see down there if you're watching on YouTube. And
yeah, if you're watching this, man, I really like your setup. It feels very professional, very cool graphics, and very nice setup, dude. Very good job.
I appreciate it. Just putting in the hard work, I suppose, isn't it? Like I always say, you're one of the hardest working people on the wrestling podcast world, and I think we're on the cusp of something here, mate. So it's great to have a bit of a collaboration with you.
For sure, man. Thank you.
So, shall we begin with our excellent episode of positivity, Wrestling Rocks? My first subject I want to bring to you, because you're more of a Japanese wrestling guy. I'm going to let you sort of put yourself over a little bit more later on. But let's go away from that and go to WWE, which is probably how we both really got into wrestling to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the main positives of this whole year, let alone the last few months, is Becky Lynch and how amazing she's been, how she's basically taken over WWE in popularity-wise. From out of nowhere, really, from her heel turn. I think we've seen like glimpses of it at Money in the Bank, where she went to go for the briefcase and got a massive ovation, to the point where when she didn't get it, it was almost a disappointment when Alexa Bliss got it. But I think from that, WWE realised that the fans love Becky Lynch. And I don't know whether the heel turn was on purpose, because they thought they'd get this sort of rebellious reaction like a Stone Cold Steve Austin did back in the day, or whether it was because they are just idiots and thought they would turn her heel and keep Charlotte a face. But nonetheless, it's turned out that we've now got the most over women's wrestler in a long time, if not one of the most over wrestlers in a long time.
Yeah. So when I was thinking about this show, I was thinking, how can I sum it up to where, because some people are saying, oh, the Stone Cold similarities are a little too much. Well, I think those people aren't catching up with the speed of things, because I think it's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
And it's a fair similarity, because, speaking to, and I had the unbelievable pleasure of speaking to Mike Quackenbush a few weeks ago on my show.
That was an excellent episode as well. Yeah.
Man, it's just wild, dude. Just, if you take the plunge into podcasting or doing a show and you just talk about the thing you love, you never know what's going to happen. So, yeah. But speaking to him, he says to his trainers or to his trainees that if you want to be the next Kevin Owens or next Stone Cold or next Becky, you can't. Yeah. Because that role is already filled.
Yeah.
There's only one. So I was thinking about that, and although the similarities with Stone Cold is there, I don't think anybody logically thought that Becky would be the next it wrestler.
No.
Would be top of the game. And like you said, let's be honest, I don't think anybody thought that a female pro wrestler would be the top guy in the locker room.
No,
and
not at all.
You see what she's done with social media. I mean, that plays into this entire, social media world that she's put it in her favor and said everything that could get people riled up and in her corner. And it's just remarkable, because you think about a few years back, Zack Ryder did something very similar with his Internet Championship and his YouTube show, where he basically put himself over way before being the Elite, before all these other YouTube, Swerve casts. A lot of people do their own podcasts now, wrestlers and stuff. Zack Ryder did that before everybody.
Yeah.
And now you see a new incarnation of that with Becky just being herself and a cool heel on Twitter, basically. Yeah. She's basically being Stone Cold. She's showing up in somebody's Twitter, hitting them with the Stone Cold Stunner and mic dropping them. So it's like, I didn't expect Becky to be that person. I expected that to be a male. And maybe that's sexist on my part, but I think a lot of people probably didn't expect a female to be running the show right now.
No, 100%, because you look back at a year ago and we had like the Women's Rumble coming up and everything like that. But at the time, obviously, you had Asuka in this unbeaten run, and arguably she was the most over female wrestler, maybe along with Alexa Bliss, but on Raw. But they were the most over female wrestlers at the time going into the Royal Rumble stage, with Asuka and the Streak and Alexa Bliss doing remarkable heel work as Raw champion. Now, there's no one anywhere near the level of Becky Lynch, male or female, on either roster where everyone loves her. Find someone who doesn't like Becky Lynch and what she's doing right now. It's impossible.
I remember, and I primarily watch New Japan and British wrestling a lot.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing Becky with and I don't know the time frame, but she had the dreads going on with like some war paint going on, and I remember, man, like, what are they really? Do they know what they want out of Becky Lynch?
Yeah.
And you see what happens when you just let a wrestler be themselves, and you just let them be them. You see how far it can take you.
Yeah.
And it's incredible that they're letting her off the leash a little bit, at least social media wise. And now you have everybody trying to swing with her, and it's just nobody can come close. It's extraordinary that she's given herself her own platform within the WWE constraints and turned it into just she was like the top power ranked athlete on ESPN or something this week.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, it's outside of she's gained notoriety outside of our niche web, and that's insane.
I like to think as well that WWE have taken notice. I think it's too ridiculous to say otherwise, and I don't know whether it was their plans to make Becky Lynch this champion for a while and have this as like this run, because the belt did go to Charlotte originally for a very weird short period, and I don't think WWE would do that with someone like Charlotte. I don't think they treat Charlotte as a transitional champion. So I'm just thinking whether it's Becky Lynch, they've realised, oh shit, like she is that good, she is that over. Let's put the belt on her. Let's go and see where this can go. And hopefully, I'd like to think we'll have a long title reign with her on top. I don't know.
You know, it's interesting because let's remember, and we're going to try to keep this positive, but let's remember how everybody just shit on Roman Reigns for 3 and 4 years.
Yeah.
And now, and then you compare that side by side with Daniel Bryan's rise, and Daniel Bryan being this irresistible force, using a pun, that you had to get out of the way of Daniel Bryan because he was that good.
Yeah.
And he was that over. And it's very interesting how WWE handles a Roman Reigns situation. And we're not talking about what happens in his personal life. We're talking about him being booked and everybody just shitting on him for years and years.
Yeah.
And then you put that side by side with Daniel Bryan just skyrocketing into the world to the WrestleMania 30 main event. And I feel like we're getting that with Becky Lynch, but I wish that they could do that and be brave with some of the other stars that they have, like you mentioned, Asuka. Because when you let them off the leash a little bit and you let it just organically happen, you could have something great.
Yeah.
And you have your product on ESPN because it's hot, and it's not because of a partnership you have with them.
Yeah.
So
letting people off their leash. There's someone at the minute who I haven't made a decision whether they have done it intentionally, but it could be the case of another Becky Lynch. Maybe WWE have realised their past mistakes and learnt from the Becky Lynch situation, and that's Elias. So he was one of the most over guys last year being this heel, this year being a heel, without anything really happening for him at all. Like pay-per-views, WrestleMania, didn't have a match, he just turned up, was still one of the most over things that happened that evening, faking the Undertaker entrance. And now we've seen this like babyface turn for Elias, and he's getting not exactly put into storylines, but he's being noticed more, I feel, and I hope it's the exact same thing as the Becky Lynch situation, because we could have a male version of Becky Lynch on Raw in Elias, because he is that good as well.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the stream. I'm sorry that my eyes were down, but I'm getting notifications because people are retweeting Omega Luke's YouTube broadcast that we're on right now. So thanks for the retweets, guys. That means a lot. Thanks for the support. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, man, the way he was received on your side of the pond with the most recent tapings is that when I saw it streaming on my Twitter, I was thinking, man, this feels a lot like Fandango.
Yes.
And I think it's an interesting case to put them side by side again and compare and see how do they handle that.
Yeah.
Because it's very similar. I mean, the fans pick it up, they love it, but what is he doing? Is he going for a title, or is he just really over with the crowd?
Yeah.
It's interesting to see. I mean, I think that it's still early, so I'm curious to see if they actually put him in a meaningful feud, or if he falls off the bandwagon like, you know, Finn Balor kind of has recently.
Yeah. Because
if you let him just be himself, it's remarkable, and I think he could go really far. And this is a guy who was like a scrub in the NXT. It was just like, oh, He was a throw. Yeah, nobody cared. It was a funny thing, but people didn't like him in NXT.
No.
You think you liked him, but if you were watching NXT at the time, you didn't.
He was basically the No Way Jose.
Yeah, let's So if they push him into a good story, it doesn't have to be with the title. It just needs to be something that we care about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's just a puppet. He's just a puppet who sings and dances for us.
Yeah.
And there's more to him to that. But you have to remember who's running the show. Yeah. And that person still sees song and dance very entertaining to him. So, but if they let him off the leash a little bit, I think it could be really special.
Yeah.
But you got to do it soon because he's red hot.
Yeah.
He's red hot.
He is.
And it's hilarious. I saw the stuff he did with Ric Flair, which is pretty funny, actually.
That was awesome. At Starrcade. Very good. A quick one then. We are going into WrestleMania season soon. Becky Lynch is the hottest thing right now in professional wrestling and especially WWE. Could you see it? There's been rumors before. Could you see a main event at WrestleMania with Becky Lynch, maybe Ronda Rousey, maybe Charlotte, who knows, also involved as the actual main event?
I think that they kind of have put themselves in a position over the past year with the Saudi Arabia evolution, just the way that everything's spinning and orbiting WrestleMania. It seems like they owe it to their fans that they have that main event. Because think about it. It's a 4-hour event, not counting the pre-show and not counting NXT the night before and everything. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, you can still have multiple main events at the top of the hour before, and you could have your Brock, you could have your whatever. Why not close it out?
Yeah.
It doesn't affect your heavyweight titles at all. Why not? And it's only good publicity if you do so. So I don't see any negatives in doing that. And it's deserved to the fans, to Becky, to Charlotte, to Asuka, to Rousey. It's deserved. They deserve that spotlight.
I agree.
It would be crazy not to put them in the main event at this point because they've earned it. People tune in because of Becky.
Yeah.
And they want to see Asuka succeed. They want to see the legacy of Charlotte, grow further. Because a lot of these people that are watching Charlotte and these little girls and little boys that are watching Charlotte now, they didn't get to live through that awesome Flair timeline.
No.
So this is kind of their little chance to have a legacy to watch grow before them. So they deserve it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm totally on board with it. And if it did come about that Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey, or if we had a triple threat or whatever, if one of them won the Rumble and the other two faced in the main event, I'm all for it. I would be absolutely buzzing. I'd much rather see that than Brock Lesnar. So that's definitely what I would be on board for. But coming away from WWE now, main roster anyway, another amazing thing we have right now in wrestling, we've just come off the back of it a couple weeks ago, is NXT US takeovers. Now, I stay up and watch them live as much as I can. I don't know if they actually
That's
miss
crazy.
One. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. That's late.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's worth it because of how good they are and the quality of the matches. Wilfred, did you watch War Games this year live? What did you think of it?
I actually watched it live. I have mentioned this on my show, Wilfred Watches Podcast, that I do watch the NXT main events shows, and they're really, really good. They're really solid. I personally was I'm a sucker for old school WCW things.
Yeah.
So, like, when I grew up, I was like 1990, 1991. WCW was really, really fun, so I remember that a lot. So, yeah, the War Games match was really cool. It was a long match, of course. You expected that. The Black, Black and Gargano, that was
amazing.
Wild. Yeah. That was a really, really well-told match. And I really like the Dream match, too. I mean, I totally popped when he did the Hogan entrance. I was like, oh my God, there's nobody else that could pull off Black Hogan
No.
like the Dream can.
No.
And it's so fitting. And then you see somebody like Hulk Hogan on Twitter buttering up to a 23-year-old Velveteen Dream and saying, yeah, good job, brother. Well, fuck off, man. Like, Dream's doing this on his own, man. He could come out to anything and make it amazing. So that was really, really fun. I really enjoyed the 2 out of 3 falls match with the women.
I did. I thought it was really clever.
I love a sneaky finish.
Yeah.
I love a sneaky finish. What was it like? Kyrie hit the elbow, and then
sort of rolled her up.
Yeah. Oh, I love a roll up, man. I love a sneaky finish
style, that one.
Hell yeah, dude. So yeah, I was really in fun show, and now we're getting essentially twice as many takeover events.
Yeah.
With the UK now.
Yeah.
So, and that's like literally next month.
Yeah.
So
it is not long
it's
at
crazy.
all.
It's wild.
Going back to Velveteen Dream, it's almost a case of now he is in a way making sure he has got a match at every takeover because everyone is so hyped to see what he's coming out as, costume wise, what he wears. Mm-hmm. It's got to the point where I bet even the NXT guys who actually run the show are thinking, well, we got to give Dream a match because I'm really curious to see what he's going to do in this city, what he comes out dressed like next. When he comes out as Hogan, he comes out as Rocky. The Rick Rude / Prince version, the Call Me Up Vince.
That was one of my favorites right there, man.
The Rick Rude.
I mean, and you see what happens when you give somebody a little bit of freedom,
yes,
and you give a little bit of leeway in their creation. You get this, and you don't have to suppress it. They're just being themselves.
Yeah.
Aleister Black didn't have to come into the WWE programming as himself. They could have really given him this whole character, covered up his tattoos, but you just let him be himself. Yeah. And look what it's done. It's got people thinking about how he should be in the same realm as that Undertaker guy.
Yeah.
Where he's that spooky guy. And you can't be the Undertaker, but you can be a spooky alternative metal kind of guy that would fit this time frame. And it's crazy when you just let somebody kind of be themselves when it works for them. Because some people can be themselves and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balance, and it's a lot to do. So let me ask you a question.
Okay, fire away.
I asked this to the Take the Bump podcast. They put a question about NXT out, and I want to ask you, if Triple H takes over the Raw and SmackDown, shows down the road, and Steph takes over, what happens in NXT? Who do you think would be running NXT down the road if Triple H is taking care of the main show?
I think it probably would go to Matt Bloom and Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels, you think so?
Shawn Michaels is working a lot down at the Performance Center.
Yes.
He was also over on the UK tour. He came out in Plymouth, in my hometown, dropped a few people with super kicks. It was amazing.
Up the Argyle.
Exactly, Plymouth Argyle. Shout out to them. But I think he's got to a point in his life now where he's giving back, because he never really did that in his career throughout the 90s. We've heard a lot about how he used to shit on a lot of people, and when he was a born again Christian, he did a lot for people when he retired. You always hear stories from like Randy Orton and saying how much Shawn Michaels did for him throughout his career and stuff like that. So I really do think that Shawn Michaels and Matt Bloom, who, by the way, is awesome as well in the Performance Center, when you see backstage stuff, and everyone has only got good words to say about Matt Bloom being part of it. I think either one of those two would take it over if Triple H leaves, and I don't think we will be worried by any stretch of the imagination. I think we're in safe hands. What about you?
I think that you can definitely... And the thing about NXT, it's really cool, is that I saw Mike Quackenbush in a photo with Alexa Bliss down at NXT. So I like how they're bringing in guest trainers. They have like Steve Corino down there now.
Yeah.
You have all these different perspectives and minds. I mean, because before it was Dusty Rhodes,
Yes.
who had this immense mind and all this experience from all the different companies.
Yeah.
And so I think that they've filled that role. I mean, you can't replace Dusty, but you can fill the spot as best as you can. And they've done that really well with bringing in Norman Smiley, Cassius Ono, who's kind of transitioning, I think, slowly into a role like that. And then you mentioned Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and then Quackenbush, who has no WWE, he has a trainer's point of view from an independent scene where people are dressing up in cartoon characters. Yeah. So you have a really, really good eclectic mix of people who are getting hands-on training down there. And that's very, very good ethos and mindset to have around your quote-unquote developmental brand.
Yeah. I also think as well, you've mentioned Mike Quackenbush, and we're getting a lot of different people who have never been associated with WWE being let in. We are also seeing NXT guys go out and not be associated with WWE, with the likes of Fabian Eichner and the Street Profits in Evolve. Obviously, half of the UK, probably 80% of the UK NXT roster is part of Progress or ICW. I really do think that Triple H has done so well with NXT, giving us these like dream scenarios where we could see in the future, if he does take over WWE, people to and from the main roster of WWE onto the indie scene. It's not this thing where at the end of the territories now where everyone has to be signed to one contract and you are only allowed to be there now.
That's an interesting thing that you bring up, the territories, because I'm going to do a little plug real quick. On the 9th of December, myself and Mr. Warren Hayes from Twitter are going to have the second episode of the Kings of Chat Style, where we're going to have 2 guests on, and we're going to cover 2 topics. And one of those topics, which I'll go ahead and reveal now, is going to be how, you just said getting away from the territories, but are we? I think we're actually going more.
No, I think we're going more towards the territories.
Yeah, I think we're going to more of a territory regional based. I think we're kind of in it already.
Yeah.
Because you see the UK is it's on fire.
Yeah.
There's so many different brands. I do wonder how Brexit will affect it, to be honest. But you also have Germany happening that's really strong. You have some Spanish promotions that are doing really well. Obviously, Australia and New Zealand are on fire as well.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting to more of a territorial/regional landscape where I hope this is what Kenny and the Young Bucks mean, is that we have more freelance wrestlers in America, in the UK. Because in the United States, it's very, very WWE heavy.
Yeah.
And loyalties there. So I'm hoping that we have a little more flexibility with some of the titles next year as well. I'd like to see the NWA title on different brands. I'd like to see the MLW title jumped around, ROH title. Let's mix it up just a little bit, because I think it helps. Because like with podcasts and tweets and Twitter and the wrestling community, when you have more people around you that are interactive and add something to the conversation, it makes the whole conversation better, which I think is very reflective to pro wrestling.
Yeah, you end up building everyone around you as well as yourself, rather than taking things away from everyone, which you could say is what WWE/WWF did when they built their empire like they have now. Whereas, like you just happened to say then, the wrestling community, when people retweet and follow us, people don't just stumble across your profile and just drop you a follow just for the sake of it. You're being retweeted by, our friends Smart to Death and people like that who help us with their followers. It's the exposure you need for them, more people to follow you and people like that, and that's how you gain traffic. And it's not like we're taking people away from Smart to Death, say, if they retweet our stuff. And what that example which you used there with the wrestling community on Twitter and being this podcast community is very similar to what Cody and the Bucks are going on about, where there's not going to be any one deal contracts to one specific company. It is going to be a freelance area. We build one area, all the areas around it also or grow as well. And I think that's probably the best part about it for us as wrestling fans.
Absolutely. What do you think about the and I don't know what you're going to ask me next, but I want to know your input on the exclusive reports about UK talent being exclusive to NXT. What do you think about that? Because I'm not worried about it. I think that there's enough flow of talent in the United Kingdom and Australia, New Zealand, and Europe as a whole that I don't think we have anything to be worried about.
No, I agree. It's a shame that you won't be able to see certain wrestlers in the likes of Progress, because I know definitely for me and for like Josh with Graps and that, we want to get to more Progress shows because of how good they are. So we won't see maybe the names that are there right now, which are in NXT UK, but we're seeing them live on the network twice a week because they're doing 2-hour shows right now. So, like you said, there are so many British talent out there which haven't been given the opportunity yet. I know I've got one coming on my podcast, not this Monday, next Monday, Bronco Brendan White. He fought Pete Dunne in an amazing, amazing match. He took Pete Dunne to the limit. That match was incredible, but hardly anyone has seen it because it wasn't on a big stage such as the WWE Network or even Progress's network. It was on a smaller company in Wales called Dragon Pro, an amazing company. So when these people are then signed to exclusive deals to NXT UK, okay, we won't be able to see them anymore at our indie shows, which is a shame. We still get to see them live on the network. We trust NXT, we trust the product now that they won't just get forgotten about. If you're good enough now, you get spotted, you get used, you get the time that you deserve. But it lays this empty void for the people underneath who haven't been given the exposure yet to take their chance and go for it. And I think that's a great thing.
I am really, really big on Progress because and Eve Pro Wrestling because they cultivate the young talent so well, and they tell the stories very well.
Yeah.
I personally think Rev Pro is a little, and they have amazing matches.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I think they're a little too reliant on having that blockbuster main event.
Yeah.
And the freelance talent in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
I really gravitate towards Progress and Eve Wrestling because they make their own talent. So I'm really, really, really surprised or anxious to see what happens to Progress in 2019. If these reports are true, then Progress is essentially gutted.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there will still be some talent share with NXT UK. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm anxious because I know that very small group of Jim Smallman and Glenn Joseph at Progress are very capable of bringing some people in. They've got an amazing history already, a great atmosphere at the ballroom, and I'm really excited to see what comes of it because I think Progress is going to go through its first new regeneration, like its first cycle is completed.
Yeah,
and I'm curious to see what the second generation of Progress comes to.
No,
it's going to be interesting time.
I completely agree. Apparently, though, Wilfred, you do a very good English accent.
So what's that? A Cockney or a Manchester or Don't get me doing a Tyneside one because I can't do a Tyneside one.
Oh, I struggle with that one. I don't think anyone can outside of
Geordie.
Tyneside. Yeah.
Speaking of Geordies, Pac is back around. That's a pretty positive thing, wouldn't you say?
That is a perfect transition into our next subject, and this is. Was you as surprised as everyone else when he appeared at Dragon Gate?
I was surprised that I wasn't surprised he showed up in Japan.
Yeah.
I was surprised that he went to basically Japan's Ring of Honor. You know, it's not the top company.
Did you expect him at New Japan?
I'm going to say that I expect him to show up at New Year's Dash. I have a weird feeling that with his tweets, which are very obscure and sometimes very focused, actually, tweets, I think that the Dragon Gate is to see if that want is there. And I don't think we're going to have to wait too long. Now, I'm not in the business. I just make podcasts because I like wrestling. But I think that it would be a great spot for him to come in New Year's Dash right after Wrestle Kingdom and make a huge impact.
Yes.
Because if you're not super familiar with New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestle Kingdom is always on January 4th. And it's the biggest show of the year. But the very next day, at a very tiny Korakuen Hall, they have essentially their first show of the new year. And that's where you set the stories for the upcoming year.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, I don't know his deal with Dragon Gate. I don't know, but he's obviously touring the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
This past month and this month in December that we're in now.
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. He's back in Newcastle. He's in London. He's at Rev Pro. He's all over the place.
Yeah.
Why not, man? Why not make a return and a debut? Because I think that draw is definitely there.
Oh,
and Dragon Gate was just the first step. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, even if he doesn't come to New Japan this year or next year, it just does really, really good stuff for Dragon Gate and gets those subscriptions up.
Yeah.
And it helps, like we were saying a second ago, it helps the wrestling community as a whole, who, if you're a fan of Shingo right now in New Japan, he came from somewhere, and that was Dragon Gate.
Yeah.
So you're probably missing out on guys right now because you're not keeping your eyes on something else that's happening.
Yeah.
So, it's a crazy time, and I'm really the seeing Pac doing a UK tour right now makes me excited that he's gonna show up at New Japan. Hopefully,
yeah,
I would love it.
I'm really hoping because me and my buddies have all bought tickets to Fight Forever Pro. I think I always it's FFP anyway. We bought VIP tickets, so we are ringside. We also bought the meet and greet tickets to meet Cody Rhodes or Cody. However, Cody is unable to wrestle because of his injury. The replacement cannot be used because of this new exclusivity deal, and they have said they are going to leave it as a surprise for his final replacement. I am all fingers, all toes crossed that we have Bastard Pack turn up, because the roof will be blown off of that place just by me shouting, because that will be amazing. And
I was just looking on Cage Match. He's only 32.
Yeah.
It's very young. There's a lot of time. So even if he stays with Dragon Gate for a little while, I'm very excited to see. I think he would be an ideal pick for Suzuki-gun at this moment in time, and take that aggression and, who knows?
Give them something different, because he is so unique. He's the man that gravity forgot. It is no one like Pac anywhere. And Suzuki-gun is very full of this very violent sort of criteria. And you've got the likes of Zack Sabre Jr., like the submission specialist, a very technical wrestler. You've got Lance and Davey Boy, the big brutes. El Desperado, yes, he's a luchador, but I don't see him as the classic high-flying, flippy shit type of thing that Pac is. And I think it would be adding something completely different, Pac going to Suzuki-gun.
I think it would be lots of fun.
Yeah.
And with so much happening in 2019, I think we're going to see a lot of changes on the landscape of pro wrestling. You've got, and I don't know if you want to get into this yet, but you have, MSG coming up.
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Super Show.
Sold out already.
Going right up against NXT. Now, I was listening to a podcast where, I think it was called Fighting Aces, where they were speaking to George Carroll, who was part of the New Japan expansion into the United States. And it made me wonder if they really do have a plan beyond MSG. I think it's a really interesting chat, and I'm really hoping to get him on the podcast myself because I have lots of questions about the expansion. But I wonder I wonder if they have a plan beyond Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Because there's so much potential. There's so much potential. MSG going right up against NXT. That's a shot across the bow.
Yes.
And that's exciting for a viewer because we have this entire generation has not had the ability to flip between Nitro and Raw. No. It's only one choice. So I'm interested to see if we get to a point sooner than later where we can actually flip the channel and have some serious competition.
Yeah. Speaking of Pac, before we go off the subject, just a quick plug from my end. I have his partner for the very first ever tag team champion. His partner was Oliver Gray. He is coming on the podcast in the next couple of weeks. And that's a very good interview as well. So anyone listening who'd like to hear a little bit more from Oliver Gray, who sort of disappeared from NXT, Pax, or Neville at the time's partner for the very first ever NXT Tag Team Champion, he is coming on the podcast in the next couple of weeks.
And how good was NXT back then, man? Like that's a
crazy.
really, really good time period.
Yeah.
Bo Dallas, Big E, Tyler Breeze, Corey Graves before he couldn't wrestle any longer.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some really, really good storylines down there when
Corey
they started
Graves
that
was
up.
The guy who replaced Oliver Gray as the tag team champion.
I remember that. So, yeah, very, very cool that you got him on the show, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Going on to our next subject then. We are talking about British wrestling and sort of something that maybe people who are very WWE exclusive haven't seen. And speaking of stuff that people haven't seen, me and you both checked out Chikara last weekend for... I don't know about you, it's the first show that I caught live of Chikara and watched the whole show. I've seen bits of it before.
I am guilty of not watching enough Chikara, and I'm sorry about that. But it was lots of fun, man.
Yeah,
it was a really wild show. It was produced very well. And of course, you had the Quack on commentary.
Yeah.
And you had alternating commentary people, which is very cool. I like that concept a lot. That was really, really solid show, man.
It was good.
It was fun.
What do you think about the Cybernetical match? The 7-on-7. Weirdest shit I've ever seen. Apparently, sometimes it can go on for nearly 2 hours.
That was mad. That was just like, I can't explain it. It was just mad. I'd rather not explain it. I'd rather somebody check out Chikara and experience it themselves, because Chikara is just a whole different beast, man. It is
amazing. It's a completely different
weird
flavor, isn't it? I know
there was ant colonies involved. There was the Protus wheel. The characters that Chikara are able to produce from literally nothing is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it makes it really, really fun. It really makes it fun for old and young, just a nice break from all the serious stuff.
Yeah. I think Mike Quackenbush said it perfectly on your show with the interview you did with him. It is very comic booky, and it's for people, if you like comic books, if you like these superhero movies and you like wrestling, this could be something which you're sleeping on and you will actually really enjoy. Me, myself, I love comic books. I've got a massive collection behind me, just a little bit down the hall there. We're full of comic books in my bookcase. I love superheroes. I love to watch all the movies. I also love wrestling. I thought I'd give it a try, and I absolutely loved it. It was a lot of fun. If you're just looking to pass a couple hours and have a bit of fun, it wasn't too serious, then it's definitely something to try out.
I was impressed with the sorry, my camera's gone off. I don't know. Oh, there I am. Okay. I was really impressed with the way that they sold a story on me when I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
That's really, really good, because when you have a free stream for a show that not a lot of people jump into, you have to be able to sell somebody quick.
Yeah.
Because what am I looking at? I'm looking at guys in masks and and crazy action. I don't know what's happening. So I was really, really surprised and taken back by the way that you could tell me the story and educate me without distracting too much from the actual match going on. Like they had Solo Darling on the match, and I was like, oh, okay, this is why she's mad. This is why she's pissed. And it was really good. That commentary can go a long way, and there's not good, commentators are very hard to have. So, yeah.
I really liked it as well, and I spoke to Frantic in that very weird and peculiar.
That was
interview.
Just weird, dude. I had to turn the volume down a lot.
Yeah,
he was loud.
Shouted, didn't he? It was a great guest, completely kayfabe. It was very peculiar. It was definitely sort of eye-opening for me. Something I've never done. It was. I hope I dealt with it all right. He said after I asked all the right questions, keep it in kayfabe and stuff. But it was very peculiar. However much I did enjoy it, he sort of said like the King of Trios tournament, that sort of thing. It themed every year. This theme was Star Wars. They've had Harry Potter. Yeah. They've had Pokemon. So it really is a pop culture company, and it sort of acknowledges pop culture, which I've really liked about it. I thought, I'm going to have to check out next year's King of Trios, because not this year, but last year, the winner of the King of Trios was British Strong Style. It was Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, and Trent Seven. I
was just going to say, I mean, they have, and I think some other people can speak on Shakar better than I can, but when I've seen the names that are involved in King of Trios over the years, I think I need to watch it next year. I think I need to get into it, and I feel bad. And that's the thing. And we're going to talk positive. So real quick, if you don't know about a product, or you're afraid because you don't know how like the British pound works and you want to sign up for Progress, or you're not sure about the language on New Japan World, don't be scared about it, because people online, people on Twitter, although they seem like they're experts and they're too good for themselves, there are people like myself and Omega Luke who can help you with that. Yeah. And there's a lot of really, really good people on Twitter and on Facebook or online who can help you get into it. Yeah. So don't be hesitant, man. If WWE is not doing it for you and you need to kind of watch a little less of it, or NXT is not working or whatever, don't be afraid, man. It's relatively inexpensive. New Japan's about $8, 40 cents. Yeah, so it's about £6 or £7. Yeah. Progress is of course £5 and like $7 US. So it's really inexpensive to get into these things. And don't be afraid to ask on Twitter. Seriously. Ask me and I'll be happy to help out. Because it's worth it.
I love it when someone wants to try something new and asks me about New Japan, or the things that I may have tweeted about and people ask it. I love answering those sort of things, because especially with my group of friends, I was the first one to start watching New Japan about 18 months ago now, after I caught the Omega Okada #1 match. Just decided to watch it. It's what got me back into wrestling, and I was telling all my friends, you need to watch this, you need to get into this. Almost bullying them into watching it, force them around my house, pin them down, put it on the TV, you will watch it. And now they all watch it, and they all know all these characters. My friend Mason Adams, who is just obsessed with WWE all the way through his life. He was old school WWF guy, never watched anything else, maybe caught the odd TNA show, didn't even like WCW. He now loves Los Ingobernables de Japón. He loves the Bullet Club. He loves everything outside of WWE just as much as he loves the WWE. He wouldn't be like that if he was narrow-minded and didn't give it a chance. And that's what we're trying to say.
It's overwhelming, and it's a little scary at first when you want to watch something new or get into a product. But don't be worried, because everybody is a little freaked out at first when you see a Japanese website or or like I said, the British pound, or you don't know how to convert, you don't know how to how is it going to work. Simple questions can we all had to face that, so don't be scared, man. Wrestling is wrestling. So
definitely. Yeah. Now, someone who took the plunge by the looks of it, and has just signed a deal for WWE is our man Walter. We spoke about it a little bit on your YouTube channel the other day. We went live, breaking news as it happened. Should we just touch on what we basically said when we went on?
Yeah, sure. So Walter is the Progress champion right now.
Yeah.
He's just a phenomenal talent, very old school talent. He's the kind of guy who would actually you could put in a time machine and match him up with Andre the Giant, and it would totally work. That's the kind of guy we're talking about. His chops are deadly. He leaves battered chest all over Europe. And he's a phenomenal talent, so I'm very happy for him to be getting into the WWE programming. I'm psyched about it. I'm very happy for him.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure to watch him on Progress and some other WXW programs. So, I'm a little disappointed personally that he didn't take the New Japan offer. But like we said on the stream last week or this past week, I've got to see some really cool matches with some of the New Japan guys already, so I'm not that really hurt about it. I will tell you, I'm not trying to be big and brave. I was really hurt about Shinsuke, man. When he left, that cut me to the core, which still hurts. And hopefully he comes back. But Walter, I'm not too disappointed. I'm happy for him, to be honest.
Yeah, I know the Shinsuke thing. To me, that would be like the equivalent of Seth Rollins disappearing from WWE TV. That's how I would picture when Shinsuke left New Japan, because he was.
I mean, you got to think of it. Player. You got to think as far as years and longevity and accomplishments. It's beyond Seth Rollins, man. It's like a Randy Orton type of level of accomplishments and longevity that he had. Like, that's the type of guy we're talking about, like an Orton, or I don't know. I would say Big Show, but Big Show sucks now. But somebody with that much clout, leaving was really tough. Even though he's much older, still, I mean, it was tough to see that. But Walter's still relatively young.
Yeah.
And he's a trainer at WXW, so I think if he's in the UK product, I think that's really positive because he's still going to be close to home.
Is that where you think he's going to go? NXT UK?
I think that would be smart because if he had any say so in his deal, it's got to have something to do with staying in the UK and building that brand, because Blackpool, you have a huge Vit coming up, and Pete Dunne's held the title for since he was born. Plus. Yeah. So there's a perfect logical setup right there. And right there, boom. Come in, take the title, squash him in 7 seconds. That would be a pretty wild time.
Nuclear heat. That would be nuclear heat. That is definitely something I could definitely see happening. The Pete Dunne situation. Yes, I love Pete Dunne as champion, and I am all for long title reigns. I only like the title to change hands if it makes sense. And at the minute, there is no one to me that makes sense to put the UK title on other than Pete Dunne. He's the most over guy without really doing anything. He's an absolute badass. He's so good in the ring. The likes of Zach Gibson and Joe Coffey, I love them. They're great. But they're not Pete Dunne's level yet.
You've got a chance with Walter that you don't need to explain his history.
No.
If he comes in and just beats up Pete Dunne real quick, or if he just beats him up in a really decent match, you don't have to explain why he's cool, because he just looks big and dominant. He
looks awesome. He comes in with that jacket, the way he stands is so powerful.
You don't really need to educate the fans that much, at least for here over on this side, who may not be as familiar with British wrestling and German wrestling. But he has a presence about him you don't really have to explain. So they have something really special and a really good... it's really good timing if they go that route.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Pete Dunne might drop it before then. We don't know.
Yeah.
Who really knows what's going to happen?
I just know.
That's the fun in pro wrestling.
Exactly.
That's the fun.
I just love to see Walter playing the violin on the UK title. That is something I'd love to see. If he wasn't going NXT UK, what would be your sort of dream match to put him in if he was either NXT or even the main roster. Very unlikely, but
in NXT, I like a good contrast in styles. So this is why I really like Zack Sabre Jr. in Japan, because you get a very contrasting style, because of course he has his own style.
Yeah.
So when you asked me that, the first name that came to mind was Velveteen Dream, because I would like to see a total contrast of himself, and that's a complete opposite. Yeah. And he's youthful, which is interesting. So I would love to see Dream versus Walter. How can he up in the giant guy?
Yeah.
I think that would be lots of fun. And also Dream has a lot of crazy antics and taunts that get a big chop across his chest just to put him in place would be pretty funny.
And Dream is so fucking good at selling. Those caving in his chest with those chops would be so good.
I think he went to the Ric Flair school of selling, personally.
Definitely. Okay, let's go on to our last subject now, Wilfred, because we're almost at the hour mark already. It is what you are mainly known for, New Japan. It has had an amazing year. Amazing 2 years, really, but this year, for me, has been a highlight because it's the first year I've watched from Wrestle Kingdom all the way through. I haven't missed a show. G1 was incredible for me. It got to the point where G1 was so good, I forgot the football season started. And for me, that is big, because football is basically my life before I started this podcast. I forgot that the football season started. I was so engrossed in G1. It was incredible. And now we are just around the corner from Wrestle Kingdom. So talk to me. World Tag League's on right now. What do you think about New Japan?
So to peel the curtain back a little bit, we both are big fans of football, and I'm not talking about handball or egg ball or whatever. I'm talking about football.
So good to hear an American say that.
Yeah. I've been watching football since I was about 15 or 16, so that's probably, without giving out my age, is like 15 or 16 years I've been watching. So, I feel the same way, man. But because of who we support, and we both support the same team, oddly enough, because of that, it's actually a welcome distraction from our football season. So, anyways, we won't get into that because that's a whole different show.
Yeah.
Jose out. So, there's a lot of people that, and this is really surprising to me, that I've learned over the past few months, because we both started about 4.5 months ago. We both kind of started our own our broadcast or our podcast, and it's really shocking, personally, how many people Chris Jericho and then Kenny brought into New Japan this year.
Yeah.
There's so many people, like my friend Jen, and of course Amy on Twitter, which a lot of people know. These people came back to wrestling because of Chris Jericho. And all throughout the year, you have these sourpuss people on Twitter who are like, oh, well, he doesn't fight all. Yeah, he did kind of wait a long ass time to defend the title, which I wasn't super happy about.
I think it's because of the tour dates and stuff, wasn't it?
But the fact that he doesn't need to financially do this,
yeah, and
he's doing it because he wants to put other people over and he's having fun, which is the most important part of pro wrestling.
Yeah,
is it's really wild that. To see the contrast over this past year that Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega brought a lot of people back into the fold who weren't in the fold before. And this guy can still draw.
Yeah.
He is still the guy. He is the GOAT. He is the top guy. And I'm really, really jazzed about how G1 went this year. Back at the Budokan was crazy. I wasn't watching New Japan back in the days when they were at the Budokan, so this was a new experience for me, and it was sensational. It was a sensational tournament. This was the first year that they had all the shows live and English commentary.
And can I just cut you off there? Kevin Kelly and Rocky Romero smashed it. It was so good.
Absolutely, man.
I thought I would miss Don Callis. I really did, because I love what Don Callis brings, the comedy side of it. But when you've got
I'm getting a phone call and if you hear it, it's Naito's music. This
No
is
way.
how my ringer is Naito. That just
I'm
shows
glad
you
to
how.
get that. To be fair, I love his music.
That's how hardcore I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry about that.
But when you see Rocky Romero being put in a Paradise Lock to add to Toru Yanu's match
Yes.
against Sanada,
That
and
was
the
one of
whole
my favorite matches, dude.
Kevin, get Milano, he's got the key. It was incredible, and I've shown that match to so many different people because it is a completely different style. You go from Kenny Omega versus Ishii, the most brutal match probably of the G1 until you maybe got to the last couple of days. An incredible match. And then you got the complete contrast of Sanada versus Yano. It might have even been on the same night. I can't remember if it was or not. But it was amazing.
I put that Sonata versus Yano match in my top 5, man. That was so
I agree.
fun.
Yeah.
It was great. And I don't know if you saw the World Tag League. I think it was yesterday or the day before when they did some live shows at Corkin Hall. And Tama Tonga was in the lock.
Yeah.
And he was all folded up. And Jado with his kendo stick was prodding him. It was such a funny scene to see him like prodding him, and Tom was like, "What the fuck, dude? Why are you sticking me with the kendo stick?" It was really funny, man. That was very cool.
So going into Wrestle Kingdom, then, are you excited for this Wrestle Kingdom over others that we've had in the past with the card that it's looking like we're getting?
I'm very excited because it always is probably the quickest 5 or 6 hours you'll ever spend.
Yeah.
It starts at around 2 a.m. here in Central Standard Time in Texas, 3 a.m. Eastern, so like 8 a.m. for you. That's splendid.
Yeah.
So it's a long show, but the way that, and if you go to Twitter right after Wrestle Kingdom on the 4th, I guarantee you people on Twitter will say, "Wow, that flew by."
Yeah.
Even though it was like 6 hours. That's how good it is, and it flows so well.
Yeah.
We're not talking about SummerSlam. This is the showcase. This is the culmination of the entire year. We have some incredible matches. Kenny Omega versus the G1 winner, Tanahashi, is going to be shocking. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a fantastic match. But it's also going to tell us how 2019 is going to go for the rest of the world of pro wrestling. So I'm kind of more anxious than anything, because if Kenny has that title January 5th, you have to think that maybe all of this all elite wrestling talk, maybe all of this is something other than a new brand, and maybe it's more of a mindset that we're going to see. Maybe Kenny's going to have the title on Impact. Maybe he'll carry it to Ring of Honor. We don't know. We don't know what all this means. There's trademarks filed. There's tweets and rumors, and none of that matters because it's not actual yet. We don't know yet for sure. So the outcome of that main event, Tanahashi versus Kenny Omega, is really going to tell us a lot. Yeah. Because if Tanahashi wins the belt again, which I think is going to happen, we're going to look at a time period where all the Kenny Omega talk is going to be fired up again, and where is he going? And who knows? Maybe we'll see him at Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's on the same level as AJ, and he gets that spot where he just comes right the fuck in, and people go crazy.
He's too big to go to NXT.
And I personally think the trajectory is going to be Tanahashi winning and building a Tanahashi Okada story through 2019, because they've got some unfinished business, and the whole last 10 years has been all about Tanahashi Okada.
Yeah.
And then you've got the redemption of not only Okada after his downfall and Gato left him and Chaos is broken in bits. You also have Naito, who has a huge redemption story to be told. And if you are new to New Japan, or you haven't watched it frequently enough, Gato, the booker, loves a redemption story, and he will put your favorite star in the mud. He's got Okada handing out balloons like a jackass because the buildup is going to be worth it.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited, man. It's going to be an extreme, and you know, you've got Chris Jericho still in the fold, Intercontinental Champion. How long is he going to be part of this? You've got G1 next year. You've got Juice Robinson, a guy who left NXT and was going to be going into the darkness, and look what he's become. It's an incredible time to get onto the New Japan bandwagon. It's an incredible time.
I agree. And like, just to sort of usher what you said, really, that Tanahashi versus Kenny Omega match, it might not be the best match of the card. It could be, don't get me wrong. But it's definitely the most important for wrestling, because once we see what happens, what the result is, we get a much bigger idea of the picture of 2019 in the world of wrestling, because we are hanging by a thread. We don't know what's happening. The Elite, as they are calling themselves, are teasing us every Tuesday with being the Elite YouTube show. We're seeing Triple H coming in with hammers. We're seeing the Young Bucks not telling Marty Scurll whether they can make January 1st because they don't know what's going to happen after January 1st. We're seeing all these things because they obviously know what's going to happen, or maybe they don't, I don't know. But they know how big of an impact it is to the world of wrestling, and it's in really their hands. And this New Japan Wrestle Kingdom show, I believe, will have one of the most important matches where we will get an idea, and that is the Omega match. Quite interesting that the Young Bucks doesn't seem to be involved at all with New Japan right now, and with the Tokyo Dome Wrestle Kingdom. I don't know what's sort of happening there. What do you think about that?
I've kind of been in the thought process that I'm kind of beyond the Young Bucks at this point. I think that they're I personally feel that they've maybe had the handshake already with Orlando, and maybe the ink is just about to dry. And I think they're kind of closing everything up and heading out. So I don't know if they have a place on Wrestle Kingdom. And I'd be honest with you, no matter how amazing the Young Bucks have been this year, they haven't been in New Japan as often as they have in prior years. So who's to say, and I know this sounds crazy because they're the Young Bucks and they're the best tag team in the world.
Yeah.
Who's to say they deserve a spot on Wrestle Kingdom?
I don't think they do. I think if I was Gator right now and I was booking Wrestle Kingdom, I wouldn't put them in. I would have my tag team match as Evil and Sonata, God, and maybe another tag team I can't really think off the top of my head. But so you have all the people who have made this year incredible, and this tag team division incredible in New Japan. Make that a decent match.
I'll tell you, Yano and Ishii are tied with Sonata and Evil and God at the top of the tag league right now, and I wouldn't be too surprised at this point because you need to give Yano and Ishii a spot on the card. They've earned it with their amazing G1s.
Ishii's been MVP of the year,
and he doesn't have a spot on the card right now. So it leads me to think maybe we will have some sort of a tie or something to that effect coming up. So Ishii needs a spot way more than Young Bucks do because he's earned it. And that's the way New Japan is. You invest your time, and it's very hard to see somebody like Ishii in the New Japan Rumble, which is like the pre-show Rumble. He's not gonna happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see him against Suzuki again for the Rev Pro Championship. I think that could be a possibility. Yeah, definitely. It's nice to see, and I thought the NWA title would be on this card. But anyhow, it is nice to see a title from another company, because that speaks to what we were saying, is that helps everybody out. Yeah. To see the Rev Pro title there is a very big plus. And it's crazy. Not knowing what's going to happen is the best part of being a pro wrestling fan. Because if you know everything that's going to happen, then you're just going to be one of these sourpuss people on Twitter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fun not to know.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
I agree. So right now, what would you say would be your match that you're looking forward to the most at Wrestle Kingdom?
I mean, other than the main event of Omega and Tanahashi, I have to say Jericho and Naito, because Jericho doesn't need to win.
No.
And then you could also make the argument that you don't want to see Naito in the Intercontinental picture again, because a lot of people, and I agree, should have been that guy to win, last year, Wrestle Kingdom 12 or earlier this year.
That one. I was shocked.
And I was kind of surprised he didn't win the G1 this year. So the way that it's trending, I think Jericho's actually going to win this and drop it at MSG, because when you think about having New Japan the same night, same time, same city, right up against NXT, you have to have a big name. And we're talking about Jericho bringing people in. Jericho's the guy you want at MSG for your New Japan show, and I think Jericho with that Intercontinental title at MSG would do wonders. So I think Naito's going to have another shitty Wrestle Kingdom, and like I said before, his redemption and his time going through the G1 next year could be that time where he dominates the G1 next year. I think that's going to be the spotlight where he starts to gain that momentum, much like Tanahashi did this year.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people didn't expect Tanahashi to win the G1, and he did. So I think it's going to be Naito's year. So I'm really excited to see what happens with Jericho and Naito. I think that's a great story to be told.
Possibly. The only thing that would make me disagree with you on the Jericho front is that I was to the understanding Jericho did the deal with New Japan on the terms that he never fights in America because of Vince McMahon, and obviously MSG is widely known as WWE's sort of homestay in New York. That would be the only thing that would make me disagree with him winning and dropping it at that show.
So yeah, no, that makes perfect sense based on what you read. But what you read is not what happens half the time.
Yeah.
Because Jericho showed up at All In a Pentagon mask and suit. He's shown up in New Japan more than we expected him to. He's holding a title in New Japan. I think that this is part of that mindset that changes the world, where we're going to see guys where you don't expect them. And you don't think Vince would bring in Jericho even after he main events? I mean,
it's got a choice. Yeah, he would have to.
I don't think that that's going to burn the bridge down entirely. I think that bridge is stable enough between the two. So I think as New Japan, you have to have Jericho. You have to have a big name. And then you fill it out with, you get Jericho, you get Tanahashi Okada, maybe you get Kenny versus Kota at MSG. I mean, you could have one of the best cards ever, man. And I think Jericho would be huge to draw people over who might say, shit, well, I have NXT, but now I really want to go see Jericho in Japan, and I could have that right here down the street from me. So it's going to be crazy. I just, with Jericho, you can't take his word for anything, because he's going to do the opposite. He's
loves the surprise.
He introduced himself into Raw with that countdown clock, and we had no idea that was going to be the moment. So you never know what's going to happen with Jericho.
Yeah,
I don't believe him. Anything he tweets is probably opposite of what's going to actually happen.
Yeah. And I think at Wrestle Kingdom, for me, I'm definitely interested in the result of the Okada Jay White match to see what's going to happen, and whether Okada's going to catch a break, and this whole chaos versus the BCOGs, how that sort of plays out. But one which hasn't been announced yet, but I'll be interested to see if it eventually happens, is at the minute we have Goto with the never open weight champion. And originally we were supposed to have Will Ospreay against Taichi, and obviously Will Ospreay had to pull out. And New Japan are very good at listening to what the fans want and the desires of like certain matchups. And one of the matchups people would desire after the G1 was a Will Ospreay versus Kota Ibushi. I'm interested to hear from you as sort of this as a New Japan guy. What would you think of a Hiroki Goto maybe dropping the belt, but also maybe defending it in more than a 1v1 at Wrestle Kingdom with Will Ospreay and Kota Ibushi all in the same match?
It seems like the plan was always going to be Ospreay Ibushi until the injury to Ospreay. So if he can be healed up and at least have a somewhat decent match, then if he's at least 75% Ospreay, you got to have that match, man. It seems like that was going to happen anyways. Taichi was never going to hold the belt.
No.
Goto was never going to get the title back that quickly. It looked like it was definitely going to be Ospreay. So it looks like they've inserted Ibushi into this because they're waiting for Ospreay.
Yeah.
So a three-way sounds totally fine. You're going to have Ibushi and Goto, was it the final night of the World Tag League?
Yeah.
So we're going to find something out really soon, like in the next 8 days or so.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to be expecting a three-way probably. That's where I would put my money right now. And then you have Goto Ospreay that you can go back to, or you can go and interchange these three parts for a New Beginning show, or even at MSG. You could have something like that. Mm-hmm. You could have that ultimate payoff between Ospreay and Ibushi, or something to that ilk.
Yeah.
So I think that the goal is definitely Ospreay to hold that belt. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen.
Yeah,
rather
I agree.
if.
Well, Wilfred, that is everything that I have for the Power of Positivity podcast that we had this Wrestling Rocks episode. Thank you very much for coming on, first of all.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me, man. I can't wait to get into more fantasy booking because
I can't wait to get you on for that.
I think everybody thinks they can be Gato or Vince, but when you actually write it down, it's a lot harder than it looks. Yeah. So I'm excited to have some fun with that, and hopefully you could come by Wilfred Watches some point in the future. You can follow me at Wilfred Watches on Twitter, ProWrestlingTees.com/Wilfred Watches if you want to support me directly. Got lots of really cool things coming up. So yeah, tweet me.
Yeah. And your first match is going to be against Mike Aron.
He's gonna squash me, man. I know it. I got nothing. I gotta look for a roll up or something. Because
he's a good guy, Mike. Strong. I'm looking forward to that. But would you like to tell everyone what you have coming up? Who have you had?
Thanks.
Coming up in the future.
We have let me pull up my schedule. We have a referee coming up on Tuesday's show, who took part in the Mae Young Classic and WWE Evolution. She's Aubrey Edwards from the Pacific Northwest. She does some refereeing up in the Northwest and the Washington, Seattle area as well. We've got the Kings of Chat Style, episode 2 with Mr. Warren Hayes on the 9th of Sunday, 9th of December. We're going to do a live stream, and that's going to be fun chats about some relevant topics. And then I've got some end-of-year awards on Tuesday 11th, and I'll tweet out the survey again for who you think is the top guys, most underrated, overrated, all that good jazz. And we'll reveal the winners during that Tuesday 11th social. Lots of cool things coming up.
Yeah, make sure you
give me the spot.
Make sure you give Wilfred a follow and a subscribe. I certainly love the interviews that you've been doing lately, and I can't wait for the ones that you have coming up.
Thank you.
But everyone, thank you very much for joining us and for giving this a listen. I hope you enjoyed our positive podcast Wrestling Rocks episode. You can follow me at Omega_Luke on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, Omega Luke Wrestling, iTunes, Spotify. Apparently I'm on so many more, which I didn't even realise. Make sure you give us a subscribe. I'm loving seeing everyone's feedback that you're all giving me recently. It's great to see. I'm also now on Pro Wrestling Tees. Make sure you pick up a tee, just like the man here, Wilfred, did. And I will catch you next time. Goodbye and good night. Bang.